The silver ships appeared in Earth's sky like falling stars, their metal surfaces gleaming against the black of space. Inside the largest vessel, Ambassador Lyreth pressed her long, scaled fingers against the viewing window and watched the human world below with growing disgust. "Look at them," she whispered to her aide, pointing at the data screens showing electromagnetic signals from Mars. "They are fighting again." The Velthari had been watching humanity for 3 months now, hidden behind advanced cloaking technology. What they saw confirmed every bad report about this young species. Humans were always at war with each other. Always angry. Always violent. Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of his warship, the UES Resilience, and stared at the rebel colony ships attacking the Mars mining stations. His brown eyes were tired from weeks of fighting, but his voice stayed calm when he spoke to his crew. "Fire the missiles at their engines only," he ordered. "Try not to kill anyone if we can help it." Young Lieutenant Jiwoo Park looked up from her weapons station. She was new to the crew and had never been in real combat before. Her hands shook as she targeted the enemy ships. "Sir, they are firing everything they have at us," she said, her voice high with fear. "I know," Daeho replied. "But we fight clean. We are not pirates." The battle around Mars was loud and bright. Human ships shot metal bullets and simple missiles at each other while they screamed orders over the radio. To the watching aliens it looked like complete chaos. Ambassador Lyreth recorded everything on her data pad. She wrote down how humans yelled during battle, how they rammed their ships into each other when their weapons ran out, and how they seemed to enjoy the violence. "These creatures fight like wild animals," she told her aide. "They have no control. No discipline. No civilization." The aide, a younger Velthari named Kethvan, nodded and made more notes. "Should we contact our home world?" "Yes," Lyreth said, her voice cold. "Tell the Council that humanity is too dangerous for galactic society. They must be contained before they spread their violence to other worlds." Down in the human battle, Captain Daeho watched one of the rebel ships explode in a bright flash. He closed his eyes for a moment and said a quiet prayer for the dead. War was necessary sometimes, but he never enjoyed it. "Captain, we are getting reports of casualties on both sides," reported Chief Medical Officer Dr. Somin Han over the communication system. Her voice was sad but professional. "Understood, Doctor. How many?" 15 of our people dead. Maybe 40 from the rebel ships." Daeho felt each death like a weight on his shoulders. These rebels were wrong to attack the mining colonies, but they were still human beings with families and dreams. War made enemies of people who might have been friends in different times. The alien ambassador watched the human captain through her advanced sensors and saw him bow his head after hearing about the deaths. She thought this was another sign of primitive emotion, not understanding that it was actually respect for the fallen. "Look how he reacts," she told Kethvan. "No control over his feelings. These humans are ruled by their emotions instead of logic." The battle ended after 6 hours. The rebel ships retreated toward the outer planets, leaving behind wreckage and floating debris. Both sides had lost good people and both sides would mourn tonight. Captain Daeho ordered his ships to search the debris field for survivors. This was standard procedure in human warfare. You saved everyone you could, even your enemies. "Sir, we found 3 rebel pilots in escape pods," reported Lieutenant Park. "They are injured but alive." "Bring them aboard for medical treatment," Daeho said without hesitation. This confused Ambassador Lyreth even more. Why would the humans save their enemies? It seemed to prove that humans were not just violent, but also unpredictable and strange. As the human rescue ships worked to save both friend and enemy from the wreckage, the alien ambassador finished her report to send home. She had seen enough to know that humanity was dangerous. "The human species shows classic signs of primitive aggression," she wrote. "They fight with crude weapons, show no emotional control, and engage in ritualistic violence. They are too unstable for contact with civilized species. Recommend immediate quarantine of their solar system." But as she wrote these words, something was happening on the human ships that she did not understand. The rescued rebel pilots were being treated in the same medical bay as the loyal Earth forces. Human doctors worked to save both groups without any difference in care. Captain Daeho visited the medical bay and spoke quietly with Dr. Han about the wounded. He asked about every patient by name, including the rebel pilots who had been trying to kill his crew just hours before. "The rebel pilot in bed 7 wants to know why we saved him," Dr. Han told the captain. "Tell him that in space we are all human first," Daeho replied. "Political differences can be discussed later. Right now he is just a person who needs help." The alien ambassador did not hear these words or understand their meaning. She had already made up her mind about humanity based on what she thought she saw. Her report was sent across the galaxy, painting humans as dangerous barbarians who needed to be stopped. The Velthari Council received her message and began planning humanity's destruction. They would send a war fleet to Earth and end the human threat before it could spread to other worlds. It was, they believed, the logical thing to do. But logic and understanding are not always the same thing, and the aliens were about to learn a lesson about judging others too quickly. 3 weeks after the battle at Mars, Lieutenant Commander Minesio Park sat at her monitoring station aboard the UES Guardian, watching strange readings on her sensors. 4 days now, mysterious ships had been appearing at the edge of their scanning range, always staying just far enough away to avoid clear detection. "Captain Deho, you need to see this," she called across the bridge. The readings were unlike anything in their databases, energy signatures that seemed almost ghostly, appearing and disappearing without warning. Captain Deho walked over to her station and studied the display. After 30 years in space, he had learned to trust his instincts, and right now they were telling him something was very wrong. "How long have they been out there?" he asked. 6 days that we can confirm. Maybe longer." Minesio adjusted her controls, trying to get a clearer picture. "They seem to be watching us, sir." On the hidden Velthari flagship, Ambassador Lyreth stood beside Commander Velthor as he studied human military formations. The commander was a career soldier with bright green scales and cold yellow eyes that had seen 100 battles across the galaxy. "Their ships move in predictable patterns," Velthor said, pointing at the tactical display. "No imagination. No real strategy. They will be easy to destroy when the time comes." "Have you chosen your target?" Lyreth asked. "The ship called Guardian. It appears to be their command vessel. Once we eliminate it, the rest will scatter like frightened animals." What the aliens did not know was that the Guardian was actually a rescue and medical support ship, converted from an old cargo hauler. Its only weapons were basic defensive systems, and its crew included many non-combat personnel like doctors, engineers and communication specialists. Back on the Guardian's bridge, Captain Deho made a decision that would change everything. He had waited long enough for the mysterious contacts to identify themselves. "Open a communication channel on all frequencies," he ordered. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Deho Kim of the United Earth Space Command. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions in our territory." The message traveled through space and reached the Velthari fleet within moments. Commander Velthor heard the transmission and felt his combat instincts take over. In his experience, when primitive species demanded identification, they were preparing to attack. "They are challenging us," he told Lyreth. "Making demands? This is clearly a threat." "What should we do?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "We defend ourselves," Velthor said, his hand moving to the weapon controls. "Fire on the lead vessel. Show them we are not afraid of their primitive aggression." The first energy beam struck the Guardian without warning, tearing through the ship's outer hull and sending shockwaves through the corridors. Emergency alarms began blaring as the crew rushed to battle stations they rarely used. "All hands, this is not a drill," Captain Deho announced over the ship's communication system. "We are under attack by unknown forces. All non-essential personnel to emergency stations." Young Ensign Heijin Lee was in the ship's cafeteria when the attack began. At only 22 years old, he had joined the Space Command to explore the galaxy, not to fight wars. His hands trembled as he ran to his assigned post in the engineering section. "Sir, we have hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, reported Engineer Chief Kyung-ho Nam over the intercom. "Life support is holding, but we cannot take many more hits like that." More alien ships appeared on the sensors, dropping their cloaking fields to reveal a small but deadly fleet. Captain Deho realized they were facing technology far more advanced than anything humanity possessed. "Return fire with everything we have," he ordered, knowing it might not be enough. The Guardian's defensive weapons fired back at the alien ships, their simple projectile weapons seeming crude compared to the energy beams that answered them. But human persistence and desperate courage began to make a difference. Lieutenant Minesio, working her weapons controls with grim determination, managed to score several hits on the closest alien vessel. "Got him," she shouted as the enemy ship's shields flickered and died. Commander Velthor watched in shock as his most advanced escort ship took critical damage from what should have been harmless primitive weapons. The humans were using tactics he did not expect, coordinated attacks that targeted weak points with precision. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "Their weapons are too simple for our shields to properly deflect," came the reply. "The shield generators are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles. On the Guardian, Ensign Heijin found himself manning a backup weapons station when the regular gunner was injured. He had never fired ship weapons in combat before, but desperation made him steady. He watched his targeting computer and waited for the right moment. When an alien ship moved into his firing arc, he pressed the trigger and sent a cluster of missiles straight into its engine section. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. The battle lasted only 18 minutes, but it felt like hours to everyone involved. When the alien ships finally retreated, leaving one of their vessels destroyed and another badly damaged, both sides were changed forever. Captain Deho surveyed the damage to his ship and felt a deep sadness. They had won this fight, but at what cost? 12 of his crew were dead, including Dr. Park from the medical section and Engineer Williams who had tried to save the damaged sections. On the Velthari flagship, Commander Velthor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. A primitive human ship had defeated 3 of his advanced vessels and killed 40 of his best warriors. It should have been impossible. Send a message to the High Command, he told Lyreth, his voice shaking with rage. Tell them the humans are more dangerous than we thought. We need a full battle fleet to destroy them. Ambassador Lyreth nodded and began composing the message that would bring war to humanity. She had no idea that her misunderstanding of human actions was about to lead to something much bigger than a simple first contact incident. Neither side understood what the other was really fighting for, and that misunderstanding would soon draw both species into a conflict that would test everything they believed about civilization, honor, and what it means to be truly intelligent. The silence after battle felt strange and heavy. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of his damaged ship, watching the rescue teams work through the main viewing screen. Pieces of metal and debris floated everywhere, spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Some pieces were from human ships, others from the alien vessels that had attacked them. Status report, he said quietly to his crew. Lieutenant Minisio looked up from her damaged console, her uniform torn and her face dirty from smoke. 12 of our people dead, sir. 23 injured. The ship can fly, but we need major repairs. Deho nodded, feeling each lost life like a weight on his chest. But there was something else on the sensors that caught his attention. Small life signs were scattered through the wreckage, some human, some alien. There are survivors out there, he said. Both ours and theirs. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jiwoo Han was already suiting up for space rescue when the captain's order came through the communication system. All rescue teams launch immediately. Save everyone you can find. In the cold vacuum of space, Ambassador Lyreth floated inside a damaged escape pod, her breathing apparatus cracked and leaking precious air. Her scaled skin was torn by sharp metal, and strange blue blood seeped from her wounds. She was sure she would die here, forgotten in the debris of battle. Through the small window of her pod, she watched human rescue ships moving through the wreckage. She expected them to save only their own people and leave the aliens to die. That was how war worked among civilized species. You helped your friends and ignored your enemies. But something strange happened. A human rescue ship approached her pod and attached a docking tube to its airlock. She heard the sound of cutting tools as they worked to open the damaged door. "Easy now, we've got you," said a voice in broken alien language as hands pulled her from the pod. The human rescuer was a young man with kind eyes who seemed more concerned about her injuries than the fact that she was an enemy. Dr. Han's medical bay had become a chaos of activity. Human and alien wounded lay side by side on emergency stretchers while medical teams worked to save everyone they could. The doctor moved between patients without seeming to notice which species they belonged to. Lyreth found herself on a medical bed next to a young human soldier who had been badly burned in the battle. The human kept looking over at her with curious but not unfriendly eyes. "Does it hurt much?" the soldier asked, pointing at her damaged breathing device. She was so surprised by the question that she could only stare at him. Why would an enemy care about her pain? Dr. Han appeared beside her bed with a scanner and began examining her injuries. The human doctor's hands were gentle as she checked the ambassador's wounds and adjusted medical equipment to help her breathe. "Why are you helping me?" Lyreth whispered in standard language. Dr. Han looked up from her work, seeming genuinely confused by the question. "Because you're hurt," she said simply, as if there could be no other reason. Through the medical bay's small window, Lyreth could see something that made no sense to her. Human crew members in spacesuits were carefully collecting bodies from the wreckage, not just their own dead but the alien bodies as well. They handled each corpse with what looked like respect, placing them in special containers. "What are they doing with our dead?" she asked the burned human soldier beside her. "Collecting them for the ceremony," he replied, then winced as Dr. Han treated his injuries. What ceremony? The young soldier looked at her with surprise. The funeral ceremony. We always honor the dead after battle, both sides. It's the right thing to do. This made no sense to Lyra. In all her years of diplomatic service across the galaxy, she had never heard of a species that honored enemy dead. It went against every rule of warfare and civilization she knew. Captain Deho appeared in the medical bay, moving slowly between the beds to check on his wounded crew. When he reached the section where the alien survivors were being treated, he paused and spoke quietly with Dr. Han. How many of them did we save? He asked. 17 alien survivors, sir. Most are in stable condition now. The captain nodded and then did something that shocked Lyreth completely. He approached her bed and spoke directly to her in careful, respectful tones. I am Captain Deho Kim. I want you to know that you and your people will be treated with honor while you recover. When you are well enough, we will discuss returning you to your own ships. Why? She managed to ask. We attacked you without warning. Deho was quiet for a moment, considering his words. Because that's what civilized people do. War is sometimes necessary, but it doesn't mean we have to become animals. Later that day, Lyreth watched from her bed as human crew members continued their careful work with the alien dead. She saw Captain Deho personally overseeing the recovery operations, his face showing what looked like genuine sadness for lives lost on both sides. A human technician was working to repair her damaged translator device when she asked him about what she was seeing. Captain always says that dead enemies deserve the same respect as dead friends, the technician explained. They fought bravely even if they fought against us. That means something. But they tried to kill you, she pointed out. The technician shrugged. That was their job in the battle. Now the battle is over, so our job is to treat them right. That's how humans do things. As night cycle came to the ship, Lyreth lay in her medical bed thinking about everything she had seen. These humans had shown mercy to their enemies, saved alien lives at risk to themselves, and were preparing some kind of funeral ceremony for the dead from both sides. Everything she had reported to her government about human savagery was wrong. These weren't brutal primitives, they were something she had never encountered before. Warriors who fought fiercely but showed compassion to the defeated. Soldiers who could kill in battle and then weep for their enemies. She began to realize that her people's plan to destroy humanity might be the greatest mistake in galactic history. But first, she needed to understand what the humans meant by a ceremony for the dead. What she would witness next would change everything she thought she knew about civilization itself. The ship's main hangar bay looked nothing like it had before the battle. All the machinery and cargo containers had been moved out, leaving a large empty space that now served a very different purpose. Soft lights replaced the harsh work lamps, and someone had found cloth to drape along the walls in colors of both Earth and what the humans guessed might be appropriate alien colors. Lyreth entered the hangar bay supported by a walking aide, her injured legs still weak but healing. She had been invited to witness what the humans called their ceremony, though she still did not fully understand what that meant. Dr. Han walked beside her, ready to help if she needed medical attention. Are you sure you want to see this? Dr. Han asked gently. It might be difficult for you. I need to understand, Lyreth replied, looking around at the transformed space. The bodies of the fallen were arranged in neat rows down the center of the hangar. Each corpse was wrapped in clean white cloth, and both human and alien dead lay together without separation. At the head of each body was a small sign with a name written in both human and alien script, as far as the humans had been able to determine the names. Captain Deho stood at a simple podium wearing his dress uniform, which he had somehow kept clean despite the battle damage to his ship. Behind him stood his senior officers, all looking serious and sad. The entire surviving crew was present, over 200 people standing quietly in formation. We gather today not as winners and losers, Captain Deho began, his voice carrying clearly through the large space. We gather as beings who shared the same space, breathed the same air, and faced the same dangers among the stars. Lyreth noticed that many of the human crew members were crying. These were the same warriors who had fought so fiercely just days ago, but now tears ran down their faces as they looked at the bodies of their fallen enemies. Lieutenant Minicio stepped forward to the podium. In her hands she held a small electronic device that Lyreth recognized as an alien personal communicator, probably recovered from the wreckage. I want to speak about Pilot Kethran of the Velthari 3rd Fleet, Minicio said, her voice shaking slightly. I was the one who shot down his ship during the battle. But before he died, I watched him do something that I will never forget. She paused, wiping tears from her eyes before continuing. His ship was damaged and could have escaped. Instead, he flew directly into our missile attack to protect a transport carrying wounded aliens. He died trying to save his friends. That is the action of a brave warrior, and I am honored to have fought against someone with such courage. Lyreth felt something strange happening in her chest, an emotion she had rarely experienced. This human woman was praising the enemy pilot who had tried to kill her, speaking of him with genuine respect and admiration. One by one, other human officers stepped forward to speak about the alien dead. They had studied the recovered personal items and ship logs to learn what they could about each fallen warrior. They spoke names carefully, trying to pronounce the alien sounds correctly. They told stories of courage they had witnessed during the battle. Engineer Chief Kyung-ho told how an alien ship had tried to rescue a damaged human escape pod even while under fire. Medical Officer Park spoke about finding alien emergency supplies that had been modified to help human physiology, suggesting the aliens had tried to save human lives even during combat. When the humans finished speaking about the alien dead, Captain Daeho began to honor the human casualties. He spoke about Ensign Hae-jin, who had died trying to reach a damaged section of the ship where both human and alien survivors were trapped. Hae-jin was 22 years old, the captain said. He had never been in battle before this week. His family wanted him to become an engineer like his father. Instead, he died trying to save people he had never met, including enemies who had been shooting at him an hour earlier. Dr. Han stepped forward to speak about medical technician Eugene, who had been killed when an alien energy beam hit the medical bay. Eugene died while treating wounded aliens, she said. The beam that killed her also destroyed the medical supplies she was using to save an enemy pilot's life. She could have left that section of the ship when the battle started, but she stayed to help anyone who needed care. As each name was read and each story told, Lyreth began to understand something profound about these humans. They saw individual people where she had seen only enemies. They found honor and courage in their opponents instead of just focusing on victory. The ceremony continued with a moment of silence for all the dead. In that quiet space, Lyreth could hear the soft sounds of crying from humans throughout the hangar. Warriors who had killed were now mourning those they had been forced to kill. Captain Daeho concluded the ceremony with words that would stay with Lyreth forever. "Death makes equals of us all," he said. "In battle we may be enemies, but in death, we are just souls who fought with honor." These beings, human and alien alike, faced danger with courage. They protected their friends and followed their duties. They deserve to be remembered not for which side they chose, but for how bravely they served that side. As the ceremony ended, human crew members began carefully moving the alien bodies to a special transport that would carry them back toward Velthari space. They handled each corpse with the same care they gave their own dead. Lyreth watched Captain Daeho personally oversee the loading of the alien dead, making sure each body was treated with dignity. When he noticed her watching, he approached her. "They will be returned to your people with full honors," he said quietly. "They were brave warriors. Their families should know that." For the first time in her long life, Lyreth truly understood what the word civilization meant. It was not about technology or the absence of war. It was about maintaining your humanity even when forced to fight. It was about seeing enemies as people deserving of respect. And now she had to find a way to stop her own people from destroying the most civilized species she had ever encountered. The massive Velthari war fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a storm of silver death. 250 ships arranged themselves in perfect attack formation, their weapons charged and ready to turn the human colonies into burning wreckage. Fleet Admiral Zethron stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 4 arms crossed as he studied the tactical displays. "All ships report ready for battle, Admiral," announced his weapons officer. "We can begin the cleansing of this system immediately." Zethron nodded, his scaled face showing no emotion. The humans had killed his people and proven themselves too dangerous to exist. Today their violence would end forever. "Admiral, we are receiving an emergency transmission from Ambassador Lyreth," called the communications officer, surprise clear in her voice. "Lyreth survived the human attack?" Zethron's mandibles clicked with interest. "Put her through immediately." The main screen flickered to life, showing Lyreth in what appeared to be a human medical facility. She looked different somehow, her eyes held an expression the Admiral had never seen before. "Admiral Zethron, you must stop this attack immediately," she said without any greeting. "Everything in my reports was wrong. The humans are not what we thought they were." "Explain yourself, Ambassador. Our sensors show you are being held prisoner by the humans who killed our people." "I am not a prisoner," Lyreth replied firmly. "I am a guest. They saved my life and the lives of 16 other survivors. Admiral, they treated our wounded with the same care they gave their own people. Zethron's tactical officer looked up from his console with confusion. Admiral, I am detecting human ships approaching our position. But their weapons are powered down and their shields are inactive. On the screen, Lyreth continued speaking urgently. Please, Admiral, just wait and observe what they are doing. You must see this before you attack. Against his better judgment, Zethron decided to wait. The approaching human ships were moving slowly, in a formation he had never seen before. Their running lights were arranged in patterns that looked almost ceremonial. Captain Deho's voice filled the alien flagship's communication system, translated by their computers into Velthari language. Admiral Zethron, this is Captain Deho Kim of the United Earth Space Command. We come bearing your honored dead. We request permission to transfer 17 warriors who died with courage and dignity. They deserve to rest among their own people. The Admiral stared at his tactical display in confusion. The human ships were completely defenseless, their weapons offline and their hulls open to show cargo bays filled with what appeared to be funeral arrangements. This is some kind of trick, muttered his second-in-command. They are trying to get close enough to attack us. But Zethron was watching the human ships more carefully. The cargo bays contained bodies arranged in perfect military formation, each wrapped in both alien and human flags. Honor guards from both species stood beside the caskets. They are returning our dead, he said quietly, almost to himself. Young Ensign Minho, now promoted after his brave actions in the battle, stood beside one of the alien caskets in the human transport ship. His job was to help transfer the body with proper respect. He had never seen an alien funeral before, but Captain Deho had explained that all warriors deserved honor. Remember, Captain Deho had told his crew before they approached the alien fleet, these people died fighting for what they believed in. We show them the same respect we would want for our own dead. Admiral Zethron watched through his sensors as the human ships opened their cargo holds, revealing the carefully arranged alien dead. Each body was positioned according to Velthari funeral traditions, though he had no idea how the humans had learned these customs. Sir, his intelligence officer reported, the humans have arranged our dead according to the ritual of honored fallen. They even included personal items and battle decorations. How could they know our funeral practices? Ambassador Lyreth must have taught them, Zethron realized. On the communication screen, Lyreth nodded. I told them about our ways and they insisted on following every tradition perfectly. Admiral, they spent 3 days learning how to honor our dead properly. They wanted to get it right. The transfer ceremony began with Captain Deho speaking directly to the alien fleet. His words were translated and broadcast to every ship in the Velthari formation. Honored Admiral, we return to you warriors who fought with courage. They defended their friends and followed their duty. In life they were our enemies, but in death they are simply brave souls who deserve respect. We have cared for them as we would care for our own. As the alien bodies were transferred to Velthari ships, something extraordinary happened. The human crews stood at attention and saluted the enemy dead. Officers from both sides worked together to move each casket, showing equal reverence for the fallen. Zethron found himself watching a young human soldier carefully adjusting the battle ribbons on an alien warrior's uniform, making sure everything was perfect. The human's face showed genuine sorrow, as if he was mourning a fallen friend rather than an enemy. They are crying, whispered the Admiral's aide. The humans are crying for our dead. It was true. Throughout the human ships, crew members wept openly as they transferred the alien bodies. They spoke the names of the fallen with respect, even though they could barely pronounce the alien sounds. When the ceremony was complete, Captain Deho appeared on screen one final time. Admiral, war between our peoples was based on misunderstanding. We do not seek to spread violence to other worlds. We seek only to protect our own people and explore the galaxy in peace. Perhaps there is a way for our species to coexist. Zethron looked around his bridge at officers who were as confused as he was. These humans had just handed him the perfect opportunity to destroy their entire fleet, but instead had used it to return his dead with honor. Admiral, his weapons officer asked quietly, should we continue the attack? Zethron was quiet for a long moment, watching the human ships slowly withdrawing to a respectful distance. Finally he spoke. Stand down all weapons. Open communication channels with the human captain. It appears we have much to learn about these people. Ambassador Lyreth smiled for the first time since the crisis began. The galaxy was about to discover that true civilization was not about the absence of conflict, but about how beings conducted themselves when conflict could not be avoided. And humanity had just taught the most advanced species in the galaxy what it really meant to be civilized.